Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Welcome to Center Point. I'm your host, Dr. Ron Anbar. In this show, we will discuss ways that we can journey to our own centers. This can help us access our inner resources to improve our physical abilities and health, our mental strength, our emotional well-being, and our spirituality. And today, I am so honored and pleased to have as a special guest Dr. Christine Sullivan, who is a nurse practitioner, and we have been colleagues now for 7 years, Christine. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad that your recruiter found me.
Yes, this is 7 years ago. I was looking to expand my practice in Point Medicine, and we cast a net, and Christine came up. But, I believe the universe works to match people up. So I'm sure we were matched, and we would have found each other one way or the other is the way I think. And Christine has been an innovator in the world of hypnosis and spirituality, and I very much hope to hear from her how she got started and where she's going. Let me tell you a little bit about Christine. So she's been in healthcare for 50 years, and her chosen profession is a nurse, but that's just a conduit through which this amazing spirit works. So she had a short experience in general nursing until she received her master's in midwifery. Midwifery, is that how you say it?
Yes, midwifery.
At age of 28, and she was under a Navy scholarship. And she actively practices nurse midwifery for the last 37 years, and she also learned and used hypnosis to help women divert from discomfort of labor contractions. She went on to obtain a postmaster's degree as a family nurse practitioner, and combines all of her knowledge to continue to dedicate herself to help men and women achieve wellness. So she joined me, it's like 7 years ago already. No, 8 years coming up. Unbelievable. And obtained additional knowledge of the subconscious. The hypnosis can be utilized to help deprogramming limited and false beliefs that lie within each one. She studied the work of Drs. Carl Jung, Milton Erickson, David Hawkins, and many psychologists and psychiatrists. She integrates the work of scientist Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's author of Biology of Belief, Dr. Candace, who's the author of Molecules of Emotion, and Dr. Masaru Emoto, water scientist. And she integrates the field of epigenetics in her therapy so we can all learn that our cells respond to our thoughts and beliefs. Wow. Welcome, Christine. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, over the 8 years, it has been a transformation, not only for me, but for my therapeutic approach, because I've been able to really expand from how I used hypnotherapy as a nurse midwife, primarily for pain management. But in addition to my women's health practice, I also had a partner, my partner Bob, an OBGYN, and he also was very appreciative of our mind-body connection. So we both went to a lot of marriage counseling courses, week-long courses. I went to additional hypnotherapy courses that integrated cognitive behavioral therapies. And I really do embrace what's now the fancy word for mind-body connection is epigenetics, where every cell of our body responds to our thoughts and beliefs. And there's been, variations of modalities where they kind of use different nomenclature, but the bottom line is that we're we're a body of energy, a body of cells, and there's a lot of things in motion within us. And they hold memories, and that's where I've had the appreciation of the depth of the subconscious and how it's very useful for our physiology. But unfortunately, we all have what I call downloads of what I consider moments in time. So I use a lot of metaphors to help our patients and clients connect to the subconscious. And first of all, just to introduce it, because I developed my Navigating Life with Metaphors, which is a PowerPoint where I integrate concepts of just navigating life with metaphors. And it's for some people, it's just like a great 20-minute presentation, but for others, it takes my whole hour because they're really, really into it. And so our subconscious works with metaphors, and that's why we dream, and then we have to kind of figure it out. So I think a depth of my therapeutic process, first of all, is to introduce, and I've had even young kids where I use my metaphors as well, to connect to what I call the disruptive pop-ups in navigating life, where we kind of do something and then we go, why did I do that? And knowing it's what I call it's our lower self, what Jung calls our shadow, and then we have our best self, we have our higher self. So I say, well, we navigate life as imperfect actors in this costume of our body. So in introducing metaphors and learning to navigate life, it has been very enlightening to so many people. So that's where I use that to tickle their subconscious, so that we have a moment in time where something upsets us, and then we download what fundamentally a lot of the psychologists, psychiatrists say we all fundamentally have. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not worthy enough. And so I feel there's an inherent programming within all of us where we just feel less than. And the other limiting factor is that we almost are integrated in a world of human interactions where there is a subliminal hierarchy where we see ourselves either there's some that are very egotistical and they just see themselves always at the top tier of judging human nature or who they are, but then there's the fundamental parts of all of us where we think we're in the bottom tier of not good enough. And unfortunately, these downloads affect us in everyday life. I mean, still, I am now at the age of 72, and I still know when those pop up. So the component of really hypnotherapy is the depth of what lies in our recognition of what lies in our autonomic system, the subconscious, that triggers what I call either a feeling where we just sense a feeling then triggers something in our autonomic system to then maybe make our heart rate race, or we start breathing a little faster or heavier. But it also can be triggered with a thought that lies within something in that subconscious where it's somebody that just kind of has a voice that may just trigger some memory or even a look or a glance, and then all of a sudden we're triggered. So part of my therapeutic process is to understand these triggers that then initiate a discoherence within us. So I can stop for a little bit and see if you want to ask me anything, Dr. Andrew.
Yeah, a couple of questions. It's fascinating how your therapy has evolved over the 8 years we've known each other. The first thought is that I've always thought the reason the subconscious responds to metaphors is that subconscious developed before we even had language. and so it still responds to just visual thoughts or sound, stuff like that. And I think when we do therapeutic work using metaphors, we're reaching deep down into, gosh, if you Carl Jung talks about the collective unconscious that's existed forever, and I think that's why we speak in metaphors. Do you have a comment about that? Do you agree?
Well, I agree that there's many that comes from childhood, but I feel in adults, I feel every day is a new theater. You know, that for those that believe that we are connected to the universe, that we're here in human form, which is I call our costume, but I also feel that we can create any new program that can happen just a minute in time. It can happen. It happened with me. I mean, I had a very loving parents and upbringing. So my worldview was that everybody was loving, accepting, and forgiving. And then I've had 2 marriages where it's like, infidelity. Well, why didn't you just talk to me first, right? So anything can happen. So then I had a download with my first one where, I didn't trust men. Nope, I don't trust men. Just from what my first husband did, then I created the download. All men are untrusting. So I don't believe that everything comes from our first 7 years of childhood. I feel we can create a new one. We can create a new one where I have, people who have done well in school and didn't have any problem, and then all of a sudden they have to take a test for work or something, and they just develop test anxiety where they didn't have it before, or something happened in a job where they were kind of reprimanded, and now it just kind of cascaded into low self-esteem. So
right.
it can happen. It can happen anywhere, from somebody just, trading, going back to Home Depot and they needed something, they forget their wallet and they have a receipt for something else, and then they try to get money from that to buy something else, and then for the $2 thing now they get arrested for shoplifting. Well, that's a bad download. That sometimes really takes a while to work with as well.
So I fully agree. You can create new patterns. In fact, that's what we do, isn't it, to help our patients move forward? I guess I was talking more about why metaphors work, and I was explaining that my idea that it's a primitive way of talking to the mind that accepts the metaphors. But if we could drill down, I want to ask about the word epigenetics in your work. So the way I think of epigenetics is that our experiences or our thoughts, or both, can affect the way our DNA expresses itself. So that we all have genetic code, but it's not static. It's not always the same in terms of what it produces. And experiences and thoughts can affect how our DNA expresses. And the DNA does everything in our body in terms of creating chemicals and cells and can change things based on activation. But I wonder, is your definition of epigenetics, you mentioned affects our cells, is all through the genetic means, or do you think thoughts can affect cells in other ways than affecting the genetic expression?
Yes, and I don't focus on genetic expression, and that's why I like the work of Dr. Emoto, who did all his water science. So, because I believe that from a lot of my work with investigating the twin studies with epigenetics, is that we are not defined. We can all have a DNA, but it will not be expressed unless we activate it, right? So there are some, and that's belief. So some people will have a family history of heart disease or whatever, and they know about it, but they're very positive about their life. They also, and with that is also how you activate your eating habits or exercise or whatever. But there are some we know there are a lot of people that have done gene studies, and then is it really good because now they know, and then they become fearful, and they then start having images of them being in hospitals. So, that's where you have to say, well, that activated just because they're now focusing on fear and thought. And that's where I work with, if thoughts and beliefs are more powerful than DNA, then I work to divert from anything that takes you down a negative cascade, and to be seeing the future of the belief that you're going to be healthy. I have a new grandson, actually my only genetic grandson, and so I've been a midwife for a long time. I've raised 2 boys with one that loved motorcycles and bicycles and had 20 broken bones by the time he was 20. So, immediately I'm like, whoa, another boy here. So I just keep seeing myself. We're walking on the beach, me and Wild, and it's 20 years from now and we're both healthy. So right away, it just calms me down so that I don't allow myself to ruminate into, oh, my God, this could happen, that could happen, that could happen. So the modality for which I work with is to use all of these concepts to basically empower people to know that we have the ability to move away from the rabbit hole of negativity and creating a fearful belief or a pessimistic belief. And that's the work of Dr. Emoto. That's the work of even Dr. Candace Pert, where she found that it's not just overt thoughts, it's also subconscious fields within us that can affect our biology. And that's why I love her book, Molecules of Emotion. So that's where I have combined coherence. Coherence is a positive thought and a calming positive feeling. But at the same time, coherence is also a feeling of ownership. I shouldn't have done that. I was rude, or I was, a little bit forceful in my voice, or whatever it is. So there's coherence is what I say is truth. The truth of who we are at the moment that we reflect on how we want to navigate life. So that's where I basically open the window of looking at ourselves from the fact that we are here on Earth, for me, because I believe I'm spirit inhabited within me. But for those that are agnostic or don't believe in that connection, I say it doesn't really matter. You still have to own who you are, and that if we come with a foundation that we're all imperfect at the moment, that if we can own we're all imperfect, that we can be inappropriate, we can say something the wrong way or the tone is the wrong way. That's why we're here. And it's the polarity of comparing the best of who we know we can be and can manifest ourselves to the polarity of knowing that we can be imperfect in different scales of that. It doesn't really matter. When we own it, we can feel it. And when we can get to that depth of polarity is important to know that we're our best self at times, but we're also a person in a moment in time we don't like ourselves, and that we can learn, and that's why I love the work of Dr. David Hawkins, is to learn that we're trying to climb the ladder of higher consciousness. And it's the belief that every reincarnation is to continue to advance by experiencing many, many theaters. Every day is a theater, but every day can have many acts, what I call cards in our deck of cards. And sometimes it's just one moment, one card in our deck of cards that allows us to think about, oh my gosh, I was really imperfect. I think we need to eliminate bad and evil from the vocabulary and just accept we're all imperfect at times, and to learn to own it, and then to climb up the ladder of consciousness, to be able to proactively go to someone and say, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have said that, and I feel really bad, and I'm just sorry, and I hope you can forgive me. And in doing so, when we learn to forgive ourselves, then we can learn to forgive others. I think that's where the bullseye is, when we learn to own that feeling we could have been better, and to know the polarity of knowing when we are great, not to be pompous about it, but to know how great it feels to love and to forgive others.
When we met 8 years ago, I asked you, you were in your 60s. I said, how long do you plan to work for? Because, if I'm going to start with a new person, I want to be there for a while. Replied?
Well, I said, I know I'm going to work till I die.
Yeah, and I had the same answer, but God willing, with our mental, the way we set our mental attitude, we'll both be around for a long time, because I too have another 25-year plan right now.
Yes. And that's where I feel when you love what you're doing, and when you're interacting and you're getting that connection with another, it's like eating at the greatest restaurant that always has a beautiful meal every day for you.
So true, so rejuvenating. Well, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll keep our conversation going with Dr. Christine Sullivan. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine, with services in La Jolla, California, and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
More exhilarating talk. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Center Point. with Dr. Ron Anbar and our special guest, Dr. Christine Sullivan. Hello. So Christine is involved not just in hypnosis, she's involved in many other alternative therapies or complementary therapies, including a very interesting light and sound chamber. I'm wondering if you could tell us how that works and what that's about.
Yes, well, in working with you with hypnotherapy and meeting several people, I've always appreciated in all of my work and in midwifery and in women's health, and I do a little internal medicine, even urgent care, because I still like all modalities of healing. I've met so many people, and so I've learned so many concepts from recommendations from patients. I just had them yesterday, oh, did you read this book? And I'm like, no, let me write it down. So I've learned so much. So I was lucky to have met somebody that kind of got me looking into energy therapy. So I subscribe to Gaia TV Network, which is a really nice channel with all kinds of esoteric options in terms of learning, from aliens to hypnotherapy and energy medicine and functional and naturalistic medicine. So I did find some information about light and sound and just energy, because there's a great movie called Grounding that's actually free on YouTube, which it's about an hour long, but it shows research that was done by somebody that put a probe on the earth and then connected it to a chair, and that the energy was amazing. They had a retina guy looking at someone's retina with just that energy that came from the ground, and the amount of improved microcirculation was incredible. So it really got me interested in energy therapy, and so I read various books. Dr. James Oshman, there's actually even a orthopedic doctor that has done a lot of energy work. So the bottom line is I was able to find an egg-shaped chamber that was the vision of Gail Lynn, who actually is like an engineer, and that's her background. And she was able to kind of reformulate a coffin-like light and sound chamber and made it egg-shaped. So in 2019, we were able to buy one, and I didn't use her patented name. Initially, it was called the harmonic egg, but because I skewed away from her program, we just call it the light and sound chamber. I use it a lot for hypnotherapy because the resonance of the sound of the music with this Tesla shape, the 3612 geometric shape, allows the frequency to really flow within the body, and then various colors based on. For me, I let the client or the patient choose it because they're all healing frequencies. But basically, I personally have been using various types of modality. We did purchase the light and sound chamber for people that really want to get in a deep relaxation, and have had people with just some amazing healing from their own ability to, I think, just meditate in there and reflect on things. But basically, our body is a holographic field of energy. And just like we all feel great when we're on the beach with our bare feet and we're hiking through nature and we feel the sun's rays and our feet on the ground where we're just resonating with creation of Earth, our bodies feel so good. But there's work of, a lot of it's the work of physicists. It's amazing and what they already know and how it can be integrated with healing. But basically, energy therapy, whether it's our bare feet standing on the ground or different hertz of frequencies of music, or we have a machine called the Pearl M, where we can specifically set the hertz of different parts of the body and help it heal. And this is the work of many, many physicists, but there is a website, www.dnafrequencies.com. And this woman has the patent, on the formula for the entire body's frequency. So what's nice about the Pearl M is that you can just sit in a room and the frequency goes around 30 feet. But if you don't have a problem, it just flows through you. But if you have a problem, it helps just regulate the disturbance in the body. But the bottom line is it's been used actually for over 100 years, and I'm kind of my personal case study. My husband, who is a physician, he has his, and because we work in different parts of California. But I've been doing 3 to 4 hours a day, and personally, I feel younger. I feel people have said, "Wow, you seem like you're younger instead of older," and I'm like, "Well, I'm doing all kinds of energy therapy." So we've had various people come, and they buy different packages for that. I use it about 98% for my deep hypnotherapy. I also do different types of hypnotherapy. Dr. Ambar, I'm sure, has spoken to different types. We do eye fixation. So we do different techniques. But I find for deep cleansing, I personally do about a 45-minute hypnotherapy to really reprogram the subconscious with what I talked about earlier, all of these fundamental parts of us that inhabit parts of us that get triggered. I really focus on trying to remove those limited beliefs, or at least teach individuals that when they're popping up, that how they can divert and reprogram it with positive affirmative statements.
So Christine is actually has sponsored one of the ads on this show that I'm sure you've heard, but just to reiterate, if you're located in Southern California and you'd like to meet Christine and learn about hypnosis from her, or the energy work she has described, she owns Center for Holistic Well-Being. That's the Center for Holistic Well-Being, and I believe the phone number is 619-326-8480. That's 619-326-8480. And Christine Sullivan is our guest, and this has been a fascinating show with you. If I can ask really quick, Christine, how did you even get started in this hypnosis mental health field? What triggered it?
Actually, it was my first duty station when I was in Groton, Connecticut, and I was working labor and delivery with 2 OBGYNs. I was not a midwife then, a nurse. And one of the OBGYN's wife was a nursing professor, and she and also knew about hypnotherapy. So very, very early in my career, I learned about hypnotherapy, and that's when I went to a lot of childbirth education courses, and hypnotherapy was really big because Dr. Lamaze was basically like a hypnotherapist in France. So hypnotherapy is a fundamental part of Lamaze. Yep. So that was my early beginning, and I used it, and then I added therapeutic touch, where you don't touch them, but you use your energy. And I've turned babies and flipped babies and have them move down just with hypnotherapy and therapeutic touch.
And that actually brings the whole idea that our thoughts and our energies that we convey can affect people independently of talking to them. And it's in a whole other field. That could be another, maybe spend another show talking about how that works. Christine, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for being my colleague. And you've helped so many people, and hopefully today's show will help you reach even more people, reach into their own centers and learn how to reprogram their mind and bodies and cells and life and spirit. So thank you again so much. This is
thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate being part of your your inspiration that became a reality. I really am so pleased to be your colleague.
Thank you again. This is Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar.
Make-A-Wish has been granting life-changing wishes for children and families for over 40 years. A wish is something that gives children the opportunity to look outside their illness and restore a sense of childhood back to the child. With the help of donors and more than 43,000 worldwide volunteers, Make-A-Wish has collectively granted more than 520,000 wishes worldwide. Dr. Anbar has referred many patients to Make-A-Wish. To make a donation, go to worldwish.org. That's worldwish.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
Reach your health and fitness goals. Whether you want to lose weight, learn to dance, build muscle, or just live healthy, Beachbody gives you unlimited access to the nation's most popular fitness and weight loss solutions. Visit our advertiser page and click on Beachbody now.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
All positive talk with a mature edge. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar. This has been a really cool show talking to Christine about the way she utilizes metaphors to tickle the subconscious that leads to changes in our epigenetics and how everything in our body functions. So not only do our experiences affect us, but so do our thoughts. Epigenetics is such an interesting field in that, for example, if your great-grandparents starved, let's say they lived in the Great Depression, and they didn't have enough food, and then you started eating as much as you could because there was no food around, even their grandchildren and great-grandchildren will tend to overeat because of the experiences that the great-grandparents had. And this overeating is transmitted actually in our genes because our genes change as a result of experiences. And as Christine talked, they also change in the result of our thoughts. Because after all, the way experiences affect us is through our thoughts. Something happens and we think about it. And so if we just think without experience, we still can cause change in our bodies. It's fascinating. It's not well understood. And there's a lot of science that needs to be developed around this. And I should also say one of the problems with science around this is that we can't measure our thoughts very well. We can't observe them very well. We can see maybe electrical activity, but it's not, we don't really know what's going on. It's like studying a TV program by looking at the television set itself. You have no idea what the program is, and that's sort of where neuroscience is today. So in this segment, typically I will talk about a patient, a story about a patient, And I recently had the pleasure of appearing on a show with Emily Francis, who introduced me to Healthy Life Net, where we're broadcasting. And so I described a patient who I recently met, and he has impulse control issues. He's a lovely kid, but because he has difficulties controlling his impulses, he steals on occasion. He fights within himself all the time to do the right thing, and usually the right thing is what he does, but occasionally he can't control himself and ends up getting into trouble. And in his case, the problem is the impulsivity. The problem is not that he steals. It's not that he misbehaves occasionally at school, but it's impulsivity. And it's so important when you meet a patient to identify what the problem is at the core. So, for example, with this young man who steals, if I didn't think it was impulsivity, I might talk to him about, well, you might get arrested. When you are thinking of stealing, maybe you should think about the consequences that you might get, both positive and negative, from the stealing act. But we could talk all we want about this. It wouldn't address his issue. He already knows that stealing is wrong. He got that down. He already knows he needs to fight that instinct. But what he doesn't have is the ability to control his impulse. And that's where our therapy will work, is how to teach him to control his impulsivity. So the first step when you work with a patient, and this is true with a medical patient or a patient with mental health issues, is to identify what the core problem is. Right? So if a patient comes to you and says, I have a fever, you could say, well, here's some Tylenol. That'll take the fever down. But that won't help very much if the reason the patient has a fever is his or her infection. And so you have to identify the infection and treat that, maybe with antibiotic, if that's appropriate therapy. So the same is true of mental health. Somebody comes in and they're misbehaving in school. Perhaps the problem is not that they can't behave well, but maybe they can't read well. And when they can't read, they have a hard time doing their assignments. And they get bored because they don't understand what they're reading. And that's what leads to misbehavior. So if you just work on the behavior, you won't solve the problem. They're still going to have difficulty reading. There was a story of a boy I met once who would lock himself in the bathroom. And the parents, he was 8 years old, the parents yelled at him, stop locking yourself in the bathroom. We don't lock doors in this house. And he kept doing it. And nothing worked. And he thought he behaved badly. And when I met him, I asked him, why are you doing that? Why are you locking yourself? He said, I'm afraid of monsters. Oh, monsters. I get it. Let me teach you how to make monster spray. So he made monster spray. By the way, the recipe is very easy. All you need is a little bit of lemon juice and water that you boil and let cool, and you add a quarter teaspoon of salt and 3 drops of lavender and a sprinkle of cinnamon. That's the monster spray recipe. It's worked many times. It's in my book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, the monster spray recipe. He sprayed the monster spray and no longer needed to lock the bathroom. So the problem was his thoughts that led him to wanting to lock the bathroom door. It's so important to let your child identify what the issue is. So if your child says, I hate school, why do you hate it? I don't like math. Well, what don't you like about math? And you just keep talking about it, and you can figure out maybe he has a bad math teacher. Maybe she has dyscalculia. She can't think numbers correctly. Maybe math class is just before lunch and your child is hungry. You need to identify the issue, and then you can address it. And the way to identify the issue is to ask your child or yourself, what really is the problem. Oftentimes, we give a plausible sounding answer to that question, but it's not really the issue. So we might say, my problem is, I don't think well. And that sounds right, I don't think well. But maybe the reason you don't think well is because you're having trouble reading, for example. And you need to identify that and then work on that. I've met children. I remember once a child, 12-year-old, came with autism, high-functioning autism, smart kid, but he had meltdowns that kids with autism are prone to get. When they get overwhelmed, they sort of shut down by crying and yelling and screaming, and it shuts everything down for them. That's a defense mechanism. And that got in his way in school. He couldn't go to school. It got stressful. He had meltdowns. And he was transferred to a school for behaviorally challenged kids. And there, the schooling was very slow and wasn't taught much because many of these kids had mental issues. But this kid did not fit in that school. He was very bright. And so what I told the parents to do is to move it to a different school. We had one-on-one attention that could help him deal with his issues, which were he gets overwhelmed. So once he learned to calm himself and not be placed in situations where he was overwhelmed, the meltdown stopped really well. In fact, he did so well that 5 years later he came to my office to say hello, and he said, "Thank you for working with me, and the best thing you did was have my parents transfer me to a new school, because once I went there, I did really well, and now I'm a pre-law student. He's going to go into law school." Amazing. A kid who, had we not recognized that the issue was just he felt overwhelmed and dealt with it, he might have been derailed in life. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Unbar.
More than 30,000 children and adults of every race and ethnic group in the U.S. have cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a disease causing long-lasting lung infections, limiting the ability to breathe over time. Dr. Anbar participated in research that helped advance survival of cystic fibrosis patients by more than 20 years. He encourages you to donate to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation to help find a cure. It's easy to donate. Go to cff.org. That's cff.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
Constant Contact and your small business make a perfect fit for marketing. They give you what you need to succeed. Fast and easy email marketing at your fingertips. Visit the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and click on Constant Contact to start your marketing.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Center Point with Dr. Ron Anbar. We've been talking about identifying the issues that cause our problems and dealing with the problem, the main issue, rather than the problem itself. So in this last segment, we always talk about what you can do for yourself. So today I'm going to suggest how you can get in touch with your own subconscious as a way of gaining insight to whatever issue you're dealing with. And you can do this for yourself, or you can work with your children doing so. And so I will walk you through an exercise where you can hear yourself better, hear your subconscious better. And the way this works, I'll tell you what we're going to do, and then we'll do it together. You're going to get to imagine a whiteboard. If you're really old, you can imagine a blackboard. If you're really young, you can imagine a computer screen, but something on which the writing can appear. And in a moment, we're going to ask the subconscious to write or type on the screen you're imagining, and we're going to ask a couple questions, but the main question is, do you have any advice for me? And if you're doing this because you have a problem, you can say, do you have any advice for me about my problem? And if it says yes to that answer, then you can ask it for the advice, and you'll get a new thought. The thought can come in either as words written on the whiteboard, or it can come as a feeling, or it can come as a fully formed thought in your mind. So here's the exercise. So when you're ready, imagine a whiteboard or a computer screen. And when your subconscious is ready to interact with you, the word hello will appear. Now, it's important not to pretend the word hello is there, not to put it on there consciously, but to wait until it appears. So I'll give you a moment to let the word appear. And once the hello appears, and by the way, if it doesn't appear right away, you can wait quite a bit longer, another minute or two, but it usually appears pretty fast. Once it appears, you can ask the following question: am I talking right now to my subconscious? Yes or no? And when you get a yes, you can continue. If you get a no or a no response, well, if you get a no, you might want to ask yourself, why would I not want to talk to my subconscious? And it could be you're worried what it might tell you, and then I would tell you, you should be calm about it. The subconscious is there to help you. The subconscious is there anyway, whether you talk to it directly or not. Typically, if you're doing this exercise because you want it to talk to you, you'll get a yes. Once you get the yes, the next question is, do you have any advice for me? Yes or no? Again, once you get a yes, you can keep going. If you get a no to this answer, you might again ask yourself, why might I not have advice? Is it because I'm not ready to hear the advice? Is it because I already am in touch with my subconscious? Is it I don't need the advice? Those are the kind of questions you might ask, but generally you'll get a yes to that. And finally, the subconscious is very concrete in the way it responds. So just because it said yes, it has advice for you, doesn't mean you're going to get it automatically. So then sometimes it's helpful then to say, go ahead, and then be calm and listen. So tell your subconscious, go ahead. And again, some subconsciouses will speak in words, right on the board. Some subconscious show you pictures or images, and you have to figure out what the image means. For example, a patient recently saw himself surfing, and then we discussed why would the subconscious show him surfing, and it turned out that he had been scared to surf because he had been stung by a stingray, and the subconscious was telling him it's time to get back on the board. It's time to get past that incident that's unlikely to happen again as long as he's mindful of when and where he surfs. And that was the way his subconscious gave him the advice that was appropriate for him. I will remind you the subconscious will not the subconscious is there to support you, so it's not going to give you things you can't handle. It may challenge you. You may get advice that you'd rather not hear, but generally, whatever advice you get is advice that's spot on, and I would encourage you to think about it, consider it, and incorporating it into your life or into your child's life if you're helping your child reach his or her inner core. So we all have this voice inside of us. Sometimes we call it conscience. We hear, don't do that or do this. We all have this voice inside of us. Too often we don't listen to ourselves. Too often we just live our lives and as if there is no inner voice. And that's, and then if you're a religious person, that's the same kind of thing of you live your life and forget God, even though you believe God exists. So we are much better people when we are mindful of ourselves, when we're mindful of what we know. And I have this little wristband that I give to my patients that says, remember who you are. As we go through life, when you remember who we are, then it gives us perspective on things. We know better what is right and wrong for us. We are more patient with ourselves. We are more understanding of ourselves. And therefore, we become more productive and healthy and live a long time and spiritual. All the good things that come along with being in the right mindset can become clearer in our minds when we remember who we are. It's been great to have you today. I wish for you all a wonderful week. We have, in the next few weeks, a number of patients I'll be interviewing. This should be very informative shows. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Unbar.